Drug abuse and illicit trafficking leave society with complex challenges that undermine public health, security, and human rights worldwide. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime reveals that about 275 million people globally abused drugs at least once in 2020, with more than 36 million suffering from drug addiction. Cases of thuggery, armed robbery, rape, cultism, and other antisocial activities have been linked to drug abuse, with negative consequences on individuals and the society. So what are the factors influencing drug abuse and illicit trafficking in Nigeria? We shall bring you a range of perspectives on today's episode of 30 Minutes. Welcome to the program. I am Mitaire Ikwen. The clock is ticking. The prevalence of drug abuse in Nigeria and around the world is not without causative factors and grave effects. Lydia Sampson, in our first report, looks at the country's statistics and vulnerabilities.
UN Office on Drugs and Crime World Drug Report 2022 says cannabis legalization in parts of the world appears to have accelerated daily use and related health impacts. The report also noted a rise in the manufacturing of cocaine, the expansion of synthetic drugs to new markets, and continued gaps in the availability of drug treatments, especially for women. According to the report, 284 million people aged 15 to 64 used drugs worldwide in 2020, a 20% increase over the previous decade. Young people are using more drugs, with use levels now higher in many countries than the previous generations.
Many people in the society are being faced with one or different forms of mental illness, and somehow they are not able to handle these issues. Now, one of the general reasons why drug abuse is prevalent in Nigeria is because the average Nigerian is trying to handle the pressures of life, social pressures. And most times when they are not able to catch up with these pressures, they resort to things that try to make them feel good. Some of them resort to alcohol, to tobacco, anything that can just bring them out of that pressure, that feeling of defeat, or that feeling of not being able to catch up with the demands of life. For the youth, most times, mostly from social causes. Okay, there's a case of peer pressure, there's a case of trying to belong, there's a case of trying to catch up on life, and unfortunately, most times they tend to resort to illicit drugs or illicit substances.
If you look at what is going on, before now, people were using drugs, of course, but it wasn't this much. Now we are having young people have depression, suicide tendencies, and this is a side effect of withdrawal from this medication. So they become depressed. You get to see people that are committing suicide, they are depressed. Most times when you check, the underlying factor is they had abused substances and they are not more taking them, so that's what's happened. So it's actually a challenge. It's gone beyond the young age and it's entering the teenage, and that's what we should be concerned about now.
In Africa and Latin America, people under 35 represent majority of people being treated for drug use disorders. Globally, the report estimates that 11.2 million people worldwide were injecting drugs. Around half of this number were living with hepatitis C, 1.4 million living with HIV, and 1.2 million living with both. Reacting to these findings, the UNODC Executive Director, Gadi Wiley, stated, "Numbers for the manufacturing and seizures of many illicit drugs are hitting record high, even as global emergencies are deepening vulnerabilities. At the same time, misperceptions regarding the magnitude of the problem and associated harms are depriving people of care and treatment and driving young people towards harmful behaviors. The need to devote the necessary resources and attention to addressing every aspect of the world drug problem, including the provision of evidence-based care to all who need it. He called for improved knowledge on how illicit drugs relate to other urgent challenges such as conflicts and environmental degradation. The report further emphasizes the importance of galvanizing international community, government, civil society, and stakeholders to take urgent action to protect people, including by strengthening drug use prevention and treatment, as well as by tackling illicit drug supply. Now, in Nigeria, prevalence of 14.4% is reported among members of the public, all ages, 20.9% among youths, and 81.1% among commercial bus drivers. Over 11% of youth's population in Nigeria take drugs like cough syrup, tramadol, diazepam, cocaine, shisha mix, others are alcohol, cannabis, tobacco, cigarettes, while cocaine, sedatives, cola nuts, analgesics, coffee, caffeine, glue, heroin, sniffing of petrol, energy drinks, miria, tramadol, tranquilizers, anti-malaria, and antibiotics, while the least types of drugs being abused by secondary school students.
There are a lot of things that they sniff these days, but I'll talk about one peculiar one, that is marijuana. It's very, very, very common. In fact, recently we had a case of someone who is actually addicted to marijuana, cannot stay without it. He can't sleep without taking marijuana. He can't just do anything without it. So we are trying to like put him in rehab and all that. He's still trying to come out of the process, but it's a difficult one for him. This is one of the major problems. Young people in Nigeria, especially those within the ages of 18 to 30, have this tendency of using hard drugs. You understand? Even if it's medications that were prescribed, they even go extra miles to get medications that are supposed to be on prescription. I think the Pharmacy Council itself needs to regulate things in the sense that even though these drugs are on prescription, some of these people go ahead to get medications down prescription, out of prescription. So if there's a regulation on how these drugs should be dispensed to patients, and if they follow suit, I mean, all these things will be controlled.
Other substances said to be commonly taken in Nigeria also include tranquilizers, sedatives, solvents, and inhalers, among others. According to the data, the prevalence of drugs use in Nigeria on a geopolitical zonal basis reveals that the Southwest tops the chart with about 4.382 million users, making 22% of Nigeria's total figure of 14.3 million users. The Southwest comprises Lagos, Ogun, Oyo, Osun, Ondo, and Ekiti states. The Northwest zone, comprising Kano, Sokoto, Kaduna, Zamfara, Katsina, and Kebbi states, closely follows the Southwest with 3 million drug users as of 2018, while the South-South region of Edo, Delta, Rivers, Cross River, Balsa, and Akwa Ibom states ranks third with 2.124 million users. Factors that have been reported to contribute to the high prevalence of psychoactive substance use in Nigeria include social factors like peer group influence, unhealthy family background, such as illegitimate relationships, broken homes, alcohol, parents or involvement of parents in antisocial and illegal activities. It further revealed that the early use of cigarettes, tobacco among adolescents and youth in Nigerian schools and the public contribute. This drug abuse habit predisposes the youth to a disease that may lead to early death, such as cardiovascular diseases, lung cancer, tuberculosis, and psychosomatic disorders.
A lot of people have gone down with kidney diseases and have lost their lives because of these drugs. A lot of people have gone down with a lot of neurological disorders as a result of illicit use of these drugs. Some people have actually gone down with quite a lot of complications, cardiovascular complications. Some have gone down with cancers, especially in the case of tobacco smoking. A lot of people have gone down with quite a lot of problems. So if we're not able to deal with these issues, and if we're unable to educate the populace on the dangers of use of illicit drugs, many people are going to delve into it thinking it's a social adjustment, and as a result, we're going to have more problems in that area. For the youths, I want to say this. Let us find out what exactly is troubling the average youth. If we're able to deal with his problem, we're able to deal with his attraction to drugs.
Signs to look out for majorly in people, it's when a person is not functioning normally or begins to do what is abnormal with that person. For example, a child that is outspoken begins to become quiet, withdraws from family dinner, wants to be isolated. It's a sign to check what is going on. Most of these things happen in secondary school. Sorry to say, peer pressure, friends, I took this, it made me feel this way, come and share with me. And they are introduced into substance that by the time it becomes difficult to now withdraw from them.
Allegedly, there are people engaged in some occupation like transport workers, both vehicles, motorcycles and tricycles, that are prone to drug usage as enhancers. These experts say it's not just dangerous to the users, but to safety in line of their duty.
We monitor them, we see what they do. Sometimes it's pressure. As you see a KK rider and an Uber rider, they balance the same amount every week. Uber rider balance to their owners 20,000 naira. KK rider balance to their owners 20,000 naira. So when you see them on the road driving recklessly, they are trying to meet up their targets. It's not all about drugs because we deal with them, we associate with them, we try to find out why it's like that. And then these are the feedback we are getting from them. It now boils down to the reason why we've been proposing to government for a very long time now that look, it is important for government to set up what is called National Transport Commission. National Transport Commission, that commission now will now begin to regulate who the license to operate on the road. You will be subjected to go through a certain scrutiny, including drug tests.
It is more so that they work daily with petrol. As the expert says, and I quote, when you notice that your children or house helps are in the usual habit of taking the keys to wash your cars frequently, they may be sniffing fuel. Various research by experts and relevant national and international agencies have consistently revealed the dangerous rising cases of drug use in Nigeria and the damaging consequence of violent crime, abuses, and health complications. Parents are advised to look out for seeming changes in their children's behaviors or companies.
Let's learn contentment. As long as we keep comparing ourselves with people around us, we will not see how blessed we are. But when we begin to see that despite everything, despite the challenges, that there is something to be thankful for, there is a lot to be happy about, it will help us to stop focusing on the negative part.
We are calling on NGOs, the CSOs, and every other, media especially, to see how we can educate the public. Because the problem is not that the regulations are not there, but because government did not deem it necessary to educate the public, so they don't understand the use of such regulations.
Let's also educate parents to watch out for their child behavior and see a child suddenly says, I don't want to go to school. Maybe they are trying to get him into what he doesn't want to. When we communicate well with them and we do it as a team, we curb it.
These experts says is because early detection can go a long way in mitigating addiction and saving vulnerable people from long-term rehabilitation and danger.
Indeed, early detection will go a long way in curbing addiction. But what are the relevant agencies doing to win the fight against drug abuse and illicit trafficking in Nigeria? Let's find out from Thomas Ugbeteri.
Drug abuse and trafficking in Nigeria has generated heated debate in recent times. It has attracted interest from different groups, organizations, individuals, government, ministries, and agencies, including the National Assembly. This has resulted to a renewed war by the Nigerian Drug Law Enforcement Agency. According to the Director, Media and Advocacy of the agency, Femi Babafemi, Nigeria has, in the last 29 months, recorded an enviable feat in the fight against narcotic substances and illegal drugs, with seizures of over 6 million kilograms of assorted drugs.
31,675 arrests and with 6,252,000 kilograms of assorted illicit drugs seized, which that's over 6,252 tons. That's huge. Just imagine what a fraction of that could have done to the lives of our people. We're not saying that's all that's available out there, but then as the chairman of the agency himself rightly observes, that a gram seized is a gram less what is available on the streets, and we've made more than 5,147 convictions within these 29 months, and that leaves us with some over 11,000 others ongoing in court.
The Director, Media and Advocacy, also noted that apart from prioritizing treatment, the War Against Drug Abuse Advocacy Initiative has taken a life of its own, with the agency's commands, formations, and partnering civil society organizations taking sensitization lectures and campaigns to schools, communities across the country every day. The NDLEA says it has also made significant investment in prevention, treatment, and rehabilitations of persons who are addicted to drugs.
Prevention is better than cure. The more people you can prevent from falling into the abuse of illicit substances, the better for that society or any country. And in Nigeria here, what we've tried to do is to wrap up sensitization, awareness, and we're glad that more and more people across the country are getting to know, are getting aware about the dangers of illicit substances. I'm talking of across ages, across age brackets. We see more people who are getting to know, who are getting understanding about the dangers of abusing these illicit substances. So, and that we've been able to drive that through what we call War Against Drug Abuse, WADA Advocacy Initiative. The whole essence of that is to mobilize everybody. Every citizen to buy in and take ownership of the fight.
While enumerating some of the challenges, NDLEA called for more collaboration and continued support of sister agencies, NGOs, the state and local government areas, as well as the international community to reduce the menace.
The meeting that I attended shortly after the time I gave you was the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the NDLA and the National Crime Agency of the United Kingdom, seeking, deepening further collaboration between in the area of operation between the agency and the NCA of the UK. And we have such with the US DEA, we have with the Indians.
Experts are of the view that the consequences of drug abuse are usually devastating for the individuals involved, the family, nation, and the international community. According to them, apart from the numerous medical problems associated with drug abuse, there are also some social consequences.
Most drugs, what they do first, when you begin to abuse them, is to destroy your central nervous system. Then impair your judgment. Impair your judgment to the extent that you begin to judge things very wrongly. That's why you find some people who are under the influence of drugs jumping from skyscrapers. They didn't do that intentionally. It was because their judgment had been altered to the extent that they thought the distance from the 10th floor of the building to that of the ground floor is just like centimeters away. So they just thought they were going to drop their foot or feet on the ground without knowing that it's actually that far. So apart from that, of course, it affects the overall physical well-being of the individual. It naturally destroys your mental alertness. Of course, affects your productivity as an individual at place of work, or even if you're in school.
For the individual that abuse these drugs, you have aborted your destiny. You have cut short the huge potential that God have deposited in you because of lack of patience or because of bad influence. Just imagine while in school, we have some smart students who were in the same class with them, but because of the way they choose to go the way of drugs, they dropped out of school. And these are people that you know that by the time they get into the society in their normal self, they are going to contribute to the development of our country, their community, and even their own self-development. So primarily, the individual that engage in drug abuse has already destroyed his own person, his or her own person. Then the family also, the family will be stigmatized. The family, I've seen some that because of the trauma from what their children becomes, either the parents out of shock were now also dead. And what happens to this family? The breadwinner, who is their parents, are no more. So the other siblings will now be left at the mercy of the general society.
Experts also believe that although the consequences of drug abuse are enormous, the solutions are, however, not far-fetched. They suggest taking the war to those who cultivate some of these drugs and engage in proper and constant awareness creation, among others, as part of what will help reduce consumption.
That the cannabis that people are taking are cultivated somewhere. Efforts are being made. We've seen how government agencies are going after them to destroy them at the cultivating level, but more has to be done to ensure that they don't even have access to them at all. But it's so bad that our children are so smart these days that they even lace this drug with food that we eat, which is very bad. So organically, they should be deprived of this access.
For us to win this war, primarily, we must get to a point that we accept that the government, the federal government, needs to go into active collaboration with the three tiers of government. Three tiers of government, of course. I mean the state government and the local government. And then they also have to go into a very, very strategic collaboration with the three arms of government. The three arms of government, of course, I mean the legislature and the judiciary. If we have a federal government that is determined to win the war against drug abuse, then it simply means they need a supportive legislature.
Experts are also of the opinion that to combat this menace require a multidimensional approach which will involve the family. Parents should create enough time to attend to the needs of their children and guide them properly to adulthood. Just like the community and the religious groups, the leaders should take active part in resolving the crisis at hand and help to prevent further occurrences through utterances and actions, and keep the family unit intact.
Drug abuse in our society is a collective responsibility. Don't say because this person is not my relative, if I see him in that state of mind, I will not talk to him. It is a societal problem. We have seen the consequences of drugs. The banditry we are seeing today, even some of these petty thieves we are seeing, they are all under influences of some substance. So if we don't make it a collective responsibility to see how we can advocate for it to be reduced the barest minimum, we'll have ourselves to blame.
The earlier we realize that this is a national emergency, the better for us. Unfortunately, quite a number of us still do think that, the issues of drug abuse and illicit trafficking are exclusive preserve of law enforcement agencies, notably the NTA, NAVDAC, and then the police. It is not true. Like I said, all of us are now victims. We must begin to find the courage to accept that we have suddenly become critical stakeholders in this fight against drug abuse. The menace is eating the society up. It's actually destroying the very fabric of the society. So it is not something that the clergyman stays back and says, I think that the police should do their job. NDLEA should be alive to their responsibilities. Yes, if you look at what the NDLEA has been doing lately, you find that they're actually overwhelmed by the struggle, this fight against drug abuse. They cannot do it alone.
They also called on Nigerians never to stigmatize or discriminate against victims of drug abuse, but show them love to enable them come forward for rehabilitation.
While they are undergoing rehabilitation, we should not ostracize them. we should not stigmatize them. They have realized their mistake. Because if you accept them without being judgmental, they will know that yes, people are accepting them, they are not judging them again. They will also see how they will permanently stay off drugs. But if we become judgmental, even at the rehab, at the family level, societal level, in their immediate environment, they will not see the need for them to come clean. They will want to be in that state of mind. I will not even make them to be aware of their environment, because already I have come out and been judged. Let me go back and remain there. So when we are rehabilitating, we should make it total rehabilitation without making them feel unloved.
So we must refrain from discriminating against them. Number 3, we must recognize them as victims. And when that is done, that is the only way we would have created a window for them to come forward for rehabilitation. If we do otherwise, we would have indicted them, and if we indict them and then see them as bad eggs or felons, you will find that they will keep a distance.
The consensus is that stigmatization and discrimination make recovery and reintegration difficult for drug-dependent users who submit themselves for treatment, and the prevalence of such attitude is counterproductive to the efforts, time, and resources invested by government institutions and corporate bodies working to contain the drug problem.
The fight against drug abuse and illicit trafficking in Nigeria requires collaborative efforts in order to rid society of the effects. Play your part to make Nigeria drug-free. That's where we end the program for today. Join us next week for another episode. I am Itaire Ikwen. Bye for now.